January 8th, Our Lady of Prompt Succor. This is the story of Our Lady, Sister Michelle, Pope Pius VII, Andrew Jackson, the Ursulines, and the Battle of New Orleans. The Sisters of St. Ursula arrived in Louisiana in the year 1727 to begin the education of young women and girls in New Orleans. The sisters quickly set themselves to their intended tasks. These tireless sisters worked to alleviate the needs of the French colonists, both spiritual and temporal. Wars between the European powers saw the territory of Louisiana change from French to Spanish hands in the year 1769. Several Spanish Ursulines had come to help the growing convent, but with a change in government back to France, the sisters' stay was cut short, 16 of them departing for Cuba. This left only 7 sisters to keep their orphanage and schools open. Meanwhile, in their mother country, the French Revolution brought with it shuttering of all the religious orders in France. Sister Saint Michelle of the Ursulines in the south of France was forced to quit her convent and return home. The dawn of the 19th century brought some relief to the French plight, and Sister Saint Michelle quickly set about her apostolic task, establishing a boarding school for girls in the city of Montpellier. The new apostolate progressed well to the delight of the bishop, who had in sight the full restoration of the Ursulines within his diocese. However, to his surprise, an appeal for help was sent to Mother Saint Michelle in France from the sisters in New Orleans. Sister Saint Michelle felt impelled to come to the assistance of her Ursuline sisters in Louisiana. The obstacles, however, seemed insurmountable. The bishop thought that France needed that valiant religious more than Louisiana did. He told her the Pope alone could give this authorization. To receive a response from the Pope was next to impossible. At that time, Pope Pius VII was a prisoner of Napoleon in the Vatican, and communication with him was prohibited. Nonetheless, Mother Saint Michelle wrote her letter. 3 months passed and no opportunity presented itself to send the letter. One day, she was inspired to say this prayer before the statue of Our Lady. O Most Holy Virgin, if you obtain a prompt and favorable answer to my letter, I promise to have you honored in New Orleans under the title of Our Lady of Prompt Succor. Almost immediately, a way was opened to send the letter. The request left for Rome on March 19, 1809, and the answer was dated Rome, April 29, 1809, an exceedingly prompt reply in those days. What seemed impossible was achieved. The Pope's answer was favorable. Against all opposition, he gave his full approval and apostolic blessing to her and those who would help in her mission. It only remained for Mother Saint Michelle to accomplish her part of the wonderful contract. She set out at once to fulfill her duty by ordering a noble statue of the Holy Mother of God to be sculpted. The Bishop of Montpellier, convinced now of the desire of the Blessed Virgin to be honored under the title Our Lady of Prompt Succor on the faraway shores of Louisiana, blessed the statue and set it on its way with a small brave band of Ursulines. Sister Saint Michelle and her few fellow Ursulines finally arrived in New Orleans in December of 1810. The statue of Our Lady of Prompt Succor was placed in the chapel of the Ursuline convent, and the devotion to the Mother of God under this title soon began to spread. In the year 1812, a great fire broke out, engulfing much of what would later be known as the French Quarter. The Ursuline sisters had to flee their convent in immediate danger of being destroyed by the inferno. One of the sisters wrote an eyewitness account. Hastily, the superior, Reverend Mother Saint Michelle, commanded the nuns and schoolchildren to leave the building. When she herself turned to go, she was horrified to see Sister Saint Anthony, one of the old nuns, climbing the stairs. Following her, the Reverend Mother saw she was carrying a small statue of Our Lady. As the superior watched, Sister Saint Anthony hurried to the window on the second floor. She set the statue on the sill facing the fire, and then knelt and prayed with great confidence. O Lady of Prompt Succor, save us or we'll be lost. At that very instant the winds veered and the flames were blown back, and soon died out. Our Lady of Prompt Succor thus saved the city from a raging fire, and word spread quickly of the Queen of Heaven's intercession. The victory of New Orleans in the year 1815. The extraordinary victory of New Orleans, won by American arms, will forever be attributed by Catholics to Our Lady of Prompt Succor. The rescue of Our Lady came at the moment when a great and imminent danger was threatening the city. The Battle of New Orleans on January 8, 1815, was the last major confrontation of the War of 1812. This war originally started with Napoleon's rise. With that rise, France and England again found themselves at war, and the Royal Navy went to extreme measures to man their ships. After years of forced enlistment of American soldiers into the Royal Navy, the British support for Indian raids on American western settlements, and measures preventing American ships from entering French ports, President Madison and Congress declared war on Great Britain on June 18th in the year 1812. At first, the war was limited to small engagements in Canada and along the Great Lakes. But the Treaty of Paris in 1814 soon allowed the British to focus all their resources on defeating the Americans. British ships blockaded all American ports, and the invading army burned the capital of Washington in August of 1814 before withdrawing. Sir Edmund Pakenham was given charge of the British fleet in the Gulf of Mexico, with his sights aimed squarely at New Orleans. He had a force of nearly 20,000 men, a fleet of 50 ships carrying 1,000 guns and perfectly appointed in every way. The elite of England's army and navy were afloat on that bright day of November when the last review took place in a Jamaican bay. On the American side, the unseasoned General Andrew Jackson had just 6,000 ragged, half-armed defenders of an unprepared city without supplies or arms. So certain of victory were the British that on board a ship accompanying the fleet were the future staff of civil officials sent to administer the conquered province. On the morning of January 8th, the bishop offered Mass at the altar on which the statue of Our Lady of Prompt Succor had been placed. The prioress of the convent made a vow that a Mass of thanksgiving would be solemnly celebrated each year should the Americans triumph. Prior to this, General Jackson had personally visited the convent of the Ursulines, begging their prayers for an American victory. The night before, the bishop led all the people in the city in prayer before the statue of Our Lady of Prompt Succor at the Ursuline convent, praying for a miraculous solution. On the day of the battle, General Pakenham arrived at the battlefield and saw to the preparations for the British advance. His chosen day for attack finally came, and he rode out at the head of his men, only to discover the ladders necessary for storming the American position were left on the ships. Weary of many delays, he nonetheless ordered the assault on the defending soldiers. As morning dawned, the British sent up rockets signaling the charge. A dense fog covered the battlefield, but what happened next stunned the American defenders. The British soldiers began hearing conflicting orders, and in the confusion the elite of England's army collided with one another. When the signal was given that the British were in range, Jackson gave the order to fire. General Pakenham was killed early on, and to this day no natural explanation exists for the chaos and disorder that reigned among the invading troops. In around 25 minutes, the lone remaining general of the British sounded retreat. According to numbers verified by General Jackson, more than 2,600 British soldiers lay dead or dying on the battlefield, while the Americans counted only 13. Numerous soldiers on both sides testified to the defenders firing with deadly accuracy, yet half the American troops never even fired a shot. And it was all said and all done in only 25 minutes. Our Lady's victory was as prompt as it was complete. Meanwhile, as the bishop was continuing to offer Mass, at the moment of communion a courier ran into the chapel to inform all those present that against all odds the British had been defeated. General Jackson rode to the Ursuline convent to thank the sisters for their prayers. Though a Protestant all his life, he later wrote to them crediting the prayers of the sisters with the stunning victory against the British, and always visited them when in New Orleans. The news of the victory spread like wildfire. The great numbers who a few days before had despaired and expected the worst now rejoiced at this miraculous turn of events. Grand celebrations took place in cities throughout the United States. Andrew Jackson's reputation soared, and popular acclaim eventually propelled him to the presidency. The 8th of January was celebrated throughout the United States as a national holiday until the Civil War. Before going off to World War I and World War II, pilots began visiting the shrine of Our Lady of Prompt Succor, begging Our Lady's protection before taking to the skies. Upon their safe return, the soldiers would leave their ribbons, wings, and other honors at Our Lady's feet. Similar testimonials of Our Lady's maternal care fill the shrine to this day and serve as a living testimony to the power of her aid. With great confidence, let us echo the cry of generations of Catholics as we recall this miraculous victory and pray for many more. Our Lady of Prompt Succor, hasten to help us.